Thank you very much, and I thank all the witnesses for their testimony and for their service here today, and I also want to thank Chairman Menendez for the way he has conducted this hearing. Like everyone here, I deplore what Bashar al-Assad has done to his own people by attacking them with chemical weapons. Assad has committed an atrocious crime so heinous that international law singles it out as an assault deserving of international action. But let there be no mistake, I fully agree his horrific acts deserve an international response. But what should that response be? That is why we are here today, to ask that question and many others. And I hope this hearing will do more than just rubber stamp a decision that has already been made by this administration. I have grave concerns about what the administration is asking of us, of our military, and of the American people. Here's the situation as I see it. With limited international support, we are being told the United States must retaliate for the use of chemical weapons with a surgical bombing campaign of our own. We're being told we're bombing in order to send a message. But what message are we sending? To the international community, we're saying once again, the United States will be the world's policeman. You break a law, and the United States will step in. We are on shaky international legal foundations with this potential strike, and we need to know whether we exhausted all diplomatic and economic sanction options to affect Syria's behavior. We need to increase our attention on the source of Assad's ability to continue to ruthlessly kill his own people, and that is support from nations, including Russia and China, who are cynically trying to hold the moral high ground. Assad would not be able to maintain his grip on power if he were not being supported from outside. The full force of international outrage should come down on those nations that are refusing to allow the UN to act and find a solution. And finally, I see this potential bombing campaign as a potential next step towards full-fledged war. We've been here before. The Iraq War began as an international effort to kick Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, and then years of a no-fly zone and airstrikes to prevent Saddam from threatening his neighbors or reconstituting his arsenal of chemical weapons. And as we all know, this limited military action eventually led to what is one of the biggest blunders in U.S. foreign policy, a war that I voted against. Many who voted for it came to regret that vote. Americans are understandably weary. After the fiasco of Iraq and over a decade of war, how can this administration make a guarantee that our military actions will be limited? How can we guarantee that one surgical strike will have any impact other than to tighten the vice grip Assad has on his power, or allow rebels allied with al-Qaeda to gain a stronger foothold in Syria? I take our role extremely seriously here, like many of the other senators have said, and I will hear the President and his team out. The President made the right decision to pursue an authorization for the use of military force. I hope these hearings will give the American people the answers they deserve. But there are troubling questions that need to be answered. And Secretary Kerry, I want to start with you. You've assured the American people, I watched your national television performances, that the U.S. action will not include, and I think you've said this here today, will not include the use of ground troops, that it will be limited in nature to deter Assad and others from using weapons of mass destruction. Yet the draft authorization of force proposed by the administration states that it would allow the President to use the armed forces, and I quote here, as he determines to be necessary and appropriate in connection with the use of chemical weapons or other weapons of mass destruction in the conflict with Syria. Now, this is a very open-ended proposal with no specific limits on types of forces that would be used, with no limit on their duration. Why was it proposed in a way that it conflicts with these statements of no ground troops? And what kind of language, Secretary Kerry, or the precise language are you willing to back in terms of showing the American people that we really mean what we say in terms of no boots on the ground?
Senator, all good questions, and I will respond to all of them. But I want to address sort of the suspicion and concern that you have, which is appropriate. I think everybody understands that Iraq left a lot of folks reeling for some period of time. So it's appropriate to ask the questions you've asked, but please let me try to emphasize. This is not sending a message per se. This is having an effect, an impact. This is taking action to achieve something more than just a message. It is to degrade his current capacity. It'll make it harder for him to do that in the future, and it will also facilitate our ability to hold him accountable in the future if he does, and he will know that. So this will affect his calculation. That's number one. That's not just a message.
Secretary Kerry, by degrading his capacity, don't you in fact make him weaker and make the people out there like al-Nusra and al-Qaeda and these other extremist forces stronger? And this is what I want General Dempsey to talk about in a little bit too. But
well, I'm happy
to
answer
that. Could you answer that?
I'm happy.
By degrading him, you make these extremist forces stronger, do you not?
No, I don't believe you do. As a matter of fact, I think you actually make the opposition stronger, and the opposition is getting stronger by the day now. And I think General Idris would tell you that, that he is not sitting around and his daily concern is not the opposition, it's Assad. And what Assad is doing with his Scuds, with his airplanes, with his tanks, with his artillery to the people of Syria. But I think it's important also to look at this because you raised the question of, doesn't this make the United States the policeman of the world? No. It makes the United States a multilateral partner in an effort that the world, 184 nations strong, has accepted the responsibility for. And if the United States, which has the greatest capacity to do that, doesn't help lead that effort, then shame on us. Then we're not standing up to our multilateral and humanitarian and strategic interest. Now, that said,
Can I stop you, Secretary Kerry, just there
anytime.
on that one? Because if you're talking about multilateral efforts, what we're talking about is the world being able, this is a breach of a treaty, and the world put within the United Nations that enforcement mechanism. And what we have done here with Russia and China, holding up the ability of the UN to act, we've just turned aside.
Well, Senator, with all due respect,
we should be standing up. We should be standing up and making sure that they are condemned, those countries that are not allowing us to move forward, to find a solution where the solution should reside.
Well, Senator, I don't disagree that we should be finding the solution where it resides, but the fact is that just a few weeks ago, at the UN, we sought a condemnation of a chemical attack without blame, without citing Assad, without saying who was responsible, simply a condemnation of a chemical attack, and the Russians blocked it.
Right.
So we have no illusions. Yes, is the UN Security Council having difficulties at this moment performing its functions? Yes. Does that mean the United States of America and the rest of the world that thinks we ought to act should shrink from it? No. And that's really what's at test here. I would urge you, you said, how do we know it won't result in X or Y or Z happening if we don't do it? Let me ask you, it's not a question of what will happen if we don't do it. It's a certainty. Are you going to be comfortable if Assad, as a result of the United States not doing anything, then gasses his people yet again, and the world says, why didn't the United States act? History is full of opportunity, of moments where someone didn't stand up and act when it made a difference. And whether you go back to World War II or you look at a ship that was turned away from the coast of Florida and everybody on it lost their lives subsequently to German gas, those are the things that make a difference. And that's what's at stake here. And I would say to you, you know, these are troubling questions. It's a guarantee if the United States doesn't act together with other countries, we know what Assad will do. That's a guarantee. I can't tell you what's guaranteed that some country will do if we do act, but I know what'll happen if we don't. And I'm pretty darn clear that a lot of things that people think will happen won't happen if the United States acts. It will, in fact, have enforced this international standard with respect to the use of chemical weapons. And if the multilateral institution set up to do it, the Security Council, is being blocked and won't do it, that doesn't mean we should turn our backs and say there's nothing we can do. That's not the case. And we did it in Bosnia, and it made a difference. We saved countless numbers of lives, and I believe the President of the United States believes we can do that now.
Well, I don't believe that we should have given up so easily on using the United Nations.
We haven't given
using
up.
us. Yes, we have. We haven't taken Russia to task. We haven't taken China to task. And that's what we should be pointing out at this point.
Time of the
I mean,
time of the senator
I want to
is expired.
respectfully disagree with you and say also I very much appreciate your service. I know that you're trying very, very hard to find, on the diplomatic side, as Secretary of State, a peaceful resolution.